Who's behind door number 1 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Tosh from the Bill. Who's behind door number 2 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's David Dickinson and his good lady wife. Who's behind door number 3 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's some classic white dog poo, the kind they don't make anymore. A festive Yule log. So today, it's not who's behind the door, it's who's behind the door. Lovely. Who's behind door number 4 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's former Olympic athlete and television presenter Chris Akabusi, wielding a shower head. I don't know if that's an invitation or a threat. Chris Akabusi. Chris Akabusi. Who's behind door number 5 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's something that's bound to be on all of our Christmas lists this year. A white, slip-on Lonsdale trainer. Stylish, timeless, and if you should happen to spill some high-strength lager on it, wipe clean with a damp cloth. That's a cloth, dampened with water, of course, and not more high-strength lager. Cheers. Who's behind door number 6 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's TV quiz expert and former egghead C.J. Demooey. That's not his real name, of course. He says he named himself Demooey after the Dutch word meaning handsome. Modest. Demooey is currently starring in Panto.
Oh, no, he isn't.
Oh, yes, he is.
Oh, no, he isn't.
Shut it. Who's behind door number 7 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's versatile and successful TV presenter, journalist, and well-established actress Julie Peasgood, author of the book The Greatest Sex Tips in the World. If you want to read Julie's book, I'm sure that she would recommend the hardcover. Peasgood claims that semen contains 60% of your recommended daily intake of vitamin C. Thanks, but I think I'll stick with orange juice. Who's behind door number 8 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Consumer Affairs TV presenter Dominic Littlewood. He famously stripped naked for ITV's The Real Full Monty, showing us all his little wood. Dom has a tattoo on his arse cheek that says 100% beef. That's enough to turn Fray Bentos vegetarian. Dom's TV shows exposing scams and cons often feature his name in the title, such as Don't Get Done, Get Dom, Dom's on the Case, and Dom on the Spot, though he's yet to use the title What a Con. Dom. Who's behind door number 9 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's former hostess of Wheel of Fortune and TV presenter Jenny Powell. Powell begins her morning routine by drinking apple cider vinegar. Strange to start your day with a condiment. I normally have tea and toast, but maybe I should just have a sachet of mustard. After drinking apple cider vinegar, Jenny has a cup of strong black coffee, a bowl of porridge, and then heads off for an intensive yoga session. I don't know about you, but if I drank vinegar, black coffee, ate a bowl of porridge and then did intensive yoga, I would leave the yoga studio toilet looking like a scene from the Battle of the Somme. They'd assume I was unhappy with their classes and had made a dirty protest. Powell must either have a strong stomach or a very forgiving yoga instructor. Who's behind door number 10 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's notorious killer and subject of one of the largest police manhunts in UK history, Raoul Moat. Festive. During a tense 6-hour standoff with armed police, things took a bizarre and surreal turn when, and I'm not making this up, ex-England footballer and Fog on the Tyne singer Paul Gaza Gascoigne arrived at the scene wearing a dressing gown, holding a fishing rod, a 6-pack of high-strength lager, and a cooked chicken. Yes, really. Those at the scene must surely have been looking around, expecting Jeremy Beadle to pop up at any moment. Though sadly, Beadle had died 2 years previously. Despite Gascoigne's best efforts to defuse the situation with his selection of gifts, he was instructed by police to just go home. Or, I imagine, words to that effect. Who's behind door number 11 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Luton Airport, Campari advert girl, and Emmerdale actress Lorraine Chase. Famous for her catchphrase, Luton Airport, Chase rose to fame in the 1970s when she starred in an advert for alcoholic liqueur Campari, where she famously uttered the phrase, Luton Airport. In the advert, Lorraine is asked by an admirer, "Were you truly wafted here from paradise?" To which she replies, Luton Airport. The Campari advert in which Chase says, Luton Airport, is often featured in the top 50 adverts of all time, due to the memorable way she delivers the line, Luton Airport. Whenever Lorraine makes a personal appearance at an event, she will undoubtedly be asked to say her famous catchphrase, Luton Airport. And when spotted out on the street, fans will often ask her to say, Luton Airport. Asked if she ever gets tired of having to say, Luton Airport, Chase replied, "I'm famous for saying Luton Airport. I built a career on saying Luton Airport and bought my first house using royalties from the advert in which I say Luton Airport. Saying Luton Airport has got me where I am today. I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't said Luton Airport. It'd be a bit silly now to complain if fans want to hear me say, "Nah, Luton Airport." So when a fan asks me to say, "Nah, Luton Airport," I'm happy to say, "Nah, Luton Airport." In 2011, Lorraine Chase was a contestant on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. When flying to Australia to be on the show, which airport did she fly from? You guessed it. Gatwick. Who's behind door number 12 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's a yellow Skol Lager ashtray. With its distinctive lemon colour fire-retardant glass structure, luxurious Skol Lager transfer detailing, and classic circular design incorporating a multi-notched rim, this ashtray is destined to become a much sought-after and highly prized antique of the future. It's a statement piece that demands attention and respect. It says, yes, I'm still smoking real cigarettes, and not sucking on a ridiculous fruit-flavoured electric fountain pen. But not only that, I appreciate the finer things in life, especially a cool, refreshing, high-strength can of Skol Lager. And I demand respect. Should I not receive it, then expect to be invited into the car park of this flat-roofed public house to take part in a one-on-one physical altercation, where, I assure you, I shall be victorious, and you will bear visible evidence of having been on the receiving end of a severe physical discourtesy, requiring weeks of medical attention at your local infirmary, and multiple sessions of reconstructive surgery. Merry Christmas. Who's behind door number 13 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's the UK's most prolific celebrity serial killer, Gary Wilmot. Wait, what? Surely you've made a mistake there, I hear you say. Wilmot is a popular comedian and musical theatre star. Well, that's what Wilmot wants us to think. The truth, however, I suspect is much more chilling. So when did Wilmot become Kilmot? I first had my suspicions as a child. Gary Wilmot was always on children's TV, hosting a variety of shows and making guest appearances on others, when suddenly he seemed to disappear from our screens. This was around 1987, when I believe Wilmot slayed his first celebrity victim, Eamonn Andrews. Just the year before, Andrews had surprised Wilmot during rehearsals for a panto at a London theatre for an episode of This Is Your Life. Wilmot had, I believe, killed several victims previous to this, and was furious when Eamonn Andrews turned the spotlight on his private life, risking his exposure as a murderous fiend. Seeing Eamonn Andrews climbing out of a basket to present him with the famous Red Book, Wilmot must have seen red and probably thought, "I'll put you in a basket forever, a basket made of wood, and by that I of course mean a coffin." For, just a year later, Eamonn Andrews was found dead at his home, supposedly from natural causes, but I suspect Wilmot dispatched Andrews in a cold, callous, cunning fashion, and probably quipped, "Eamonn Andrews, this is your death," as he performed his gruesome act. Wilmot then, I imagine, got the idea for his diabolical scheme to climb the rungs of the showbiz ladder by killing any fellow entertainer he perceived as a threat or simply in the way of his bloodlust for glory and his murderous desire to be Mr. Showbiz. I can't be sure when Wilmot began his murderous career, but doing away with Eamonn Andrews and making it appear to be natural causes is clearly the mark of a pro. This is why, after closing Eamonn Andrews' Red Book forever, Gary Wilmot turned his back on television and took to concentrating on musical theatre. He could travel the country, never staying in one place too long, carrying out his tour of death, bringing laughter to theatres and slaughter to their surrounding streets. You'd have thought after 40 years in the public eye there would be some scandal, some drunken brawls, something revealing Wilmot's dark side, but no. Looking on the internet, there's no juice on Wilmot. He's clean. Too clean. This only leads to further my suspicions that whilst publicly he's a man of music and mirth, privately he's a man of murder and manslaughter. Since the slaying of Eamonn Andrews, Gary Wilmot's number of entertainer executions must surely have risen to the high tens. Who else met their maker at the hands of Gary Wilmot? Corbett? Forsyth? Chegwin? Only Wilmot knows for sure. I look forward to the day when Gary Wilmot faces his final audience, a judge and jury, when justice will finally lower the curtain on Wilmot's career of carnage, and a High Court judge delivers the long overdue verdict. Gary Wilmot, this is your life. Sentence for multiple murder. Although, to be clear, and for legal reasons, I have no concrete evidence of Gary Wilmot's homicidal crimes, for the sakes of all our favourite stars of light entertainment, the next time a celebrity death hits the headlines, the question must surely be asked: was it natural causes, or was it Wilmot? Who's behind door number 14 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's an old blue UK passport. The colour of UK passports were changed from blue to burgundy to be in line with the rest of the EU in 1988. For some reason, the prospect of having a blue passport again post-Brexit has excited many people. I wish I was so easily pleased. If the prospect of a colour change in the cover of your passport excites you, I would respectfully suggest you need to get out more. A lot of things have changed or disappeared since 1988, but we wouldn't necessarily want them back. For instance, Margaret Thatcher was still UK Prime Minister, and few would like to see her return. Though, having said that, a reanimated undead zombie Margaret Thatcher lurching ghoulishly around the halls of Westminster doesn't sound too dissimilar from what we currently have in the form of a Prime Minister. The way things are going, paper passports will most likely be phased out anyway, to be replaced by a voice-activated microchip that you will be required to have implanted in your arse. Instead of showing our burgundy or blue passports at the border, we'll be flashing our arses. When you reach the front of a queue at passport control, an official will instruct you to pull down your underwear, bend over and touch your toes. They will then part your bum cheeks and shout questions about the nature of your visit up your tradesman's entrance to activate the microchip which will serve as your passport, or, should that be, arsport. Once the chip has been activated and checks made, the official will close your bum cheeks, stamp your arse with a formal seal of approval or denial, and send you on your way. So, passports won't be blue, they'll be brown. Welcome to the future. Who's behind door number 15 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's... Who the It looks like Olive from On the Buses, the 1970s sitcom about randy bus drivers. Is it Olive? No idea. That's embarrassing. Now what? Though if you're one of the people who for some reason still watch these Cold War Steve Advent Calendar door opening videos without turning the sound on, this video won't appear to be any different from the ones I've done before. Well, what do I do now? I've done an internet search for Olive from On the Buses, but I can't find where Cold War Steve got this particular picture from to make a positive ID. Maybe it's not her. Who the hell is it then? Maybe I should have done a voiceover like the insincere and totally meaningless automated apologies you get when a train is cancelled. We are sorry to announce that the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar door opening with humorous narration has been cancelled. This is due to me not knowing who the hell it is behind today's door. We apologise for any inconvenience caused. Normal service will be resumed at the next Cold War Steve Advent Calendar door opening, presuming, of course, that I know who the hell it is. Thank you. Yes, I probably should have done that. Oh well, you can't win 'em all. With 24 videos to make, there was always bound to be at least one that was not as good as the others. And this is it. But, just like buses, there'll be another one along shortly. Well, tomorrow anyway. But seriously, I mean, who the hell is it? Sod it, it's Olive from On the Buses, okay? So, who's behind door number 15 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Why, it's Olive from On the Buses. And if it isn't, too bad. Who's behind door number 15 again of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have another look. Why, it's not Olive from On the Buses. It turns out it's a jury member from the ITV drama series Crown Court that ran from 1972 to 1984. Of course. Silly me. Fancy not recognising her. Shit the bed and curtains. I mean, seriously, who's next? Someone standing in the background of the Winchester pub in an episode of Minder from 1982. Crown Court used members of the public to be jurors in the series, so sadly, we will never know her name. Talking of people in the background of TV shows, this is me, in the grey t-shirt with the black stripe, getting down on the dance floor in an episode of The Bill from 1999. Nice dance moves. Who's behind door number 16 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's ex-horse jockey, horse race commentator, and horse-related book author, Claire Balding. She's certainly no one-trick pony, and, like a thoroughbred, she's outstanding in her field and always the main attraction, coming top of any gallop poll. But Balding doesn't hang about. She won't stay in one place for long. Raking in an estimated £1 million a year, Balding is certainly financially stable. Her unbridled success should certainly silence the naysayers. Don't horse around with Balding. She doesn't suffer foals gladly. Claire has yet to hoof it up on Strictly Come Dancing. Or maybe she has. I don't know. I don't watch it. But she's often a contestant on Equestrian of Sport. Balding's favourite female singer is, of course, Winnie Hooveston, whilst her favourite male singer is Pony Bennett. And favourite group, the Gee-Gees. Claire's favourite films include Mule en Rouge and Fiddler on the Hoof. Her favourite Spanish novel is Don Quixote, and her favourite play, Hooves, Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Balding is known for her hospitality and her easy-going nature. She doesn't like to stir up trouble. Before hitting the hay, Claire doesn't throw her clothes on the floor. She mustang them up first. If you ever get the opportunity to make Claire Balding a cup of tea, remember, she takes 2 Shergars. Sorry. Who's behind door number 17 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's a pale blancmange-coloured slab of processed canned ham, which is slightly tapered at one end, looking like a grotesque reconstituted meat doorstop. Appetizing. Luckily for me, I'm vegetarian, so thankfully I'll never have to encounter a sight as chilling and disturbing as this on my plate. You can buy triangular canned ham on Amazon, and people have actually left reviews for it. Twice I've seen the phrase, "great for emergencies," used in the reviews. I don't know what kind of emergency would be alleviated with an anemic, watery slab of reformed pork meat, but I don't think I want to know. Doing an internet search, one of the search related to canned ham suggestions was canned ham trailer, hoping to see a video narrated by a gravelly voiced American previewing a forthcoming new release of canned ham. I was somewhat disappointed when the canned ham trailer they were referring to turned out to be the kind of trailer you attach to the back of a car that is shaped like a can of rounded triangular ham. Oh well, I'll just have to do my own. In a world of processed meat products, one ham will rise like a somewhat unpleasant, blotchy, pallid pink, weeping pyramid of reformed pork. Jean-Claude canned ham in Pig Boxer. Or should that be Blood's Pork? Coming soon to a Poundland store near you. Looking at what's behind today's door that resembles a ghastly, moist, cadaverous, oversized meat pear drop, I don't think I've ever been so glad to be vegetarian. Bon appetit. Who's behind door number 18 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Dirty Den himself, EastEnders star, Leslie Grantham. During a break from a grueling EastEnders filming schedule, Grantham had decided to make a Christmas cake as part of an internet webcam cookery class he was teaching in a one-on-one session with his student, a busty blonde amateur baker, eager to improve her Christmas culinary skills. The rise in temperature caused by Grantham's oven, preheated to 150 degrees Celsius, was understandably stiflingly hot within the confines of his small dressing room. But, rather than cancel his bakery masterclass, ever the professional, Grantham showed remarkable consideration by deciding to remove all his clothing rather than disappoint his keen young blonde student. To ensure Grantham wouldn't feel too self-conscious in his gentlemanly, unselfish state of undress, his busty 34D student kindly reciprocated by removing her clothing also, creating a relaxed environment for her education to continue. There's a fine art to blending dried fruit, orange and lemon zest, butter and brown sugar into a successful Christmas cake mix, and Grantham obviously wanted to demonstrate his technique in explicit detail. So before applying it to the mixing of the actual ingredients, Grantham naturally wanted to show his student the physical actions and wrist motions he uses when blending the constituent parts of the recipe together. The webcam footage shows him passionately demonstrating what appears to be an intense, stirring, mixing, whisking motion that gets the enthusiastic chef quite animated. A natural teacher, Grantham takes great pleasure in the passing on of his expert knowledge through the visibly physically demanding display of his mixing prowess to his keen student watching on her laptop whilst relaxing in her bedroom at home. Grantham continues this intense, energetic demonstration for some minutes until the exhibition reaches its climax, when, seemingly, some liquid ingredients are accidentally upset off-screen and are then vigorously ejected upwards onto Grantham's bare stomach and lower chest. Grantham's professionalism is revealed once again, when he immediately attends to his sudden bodily uncleanliness by wiping himself clean with a gym sock, and proceeds to continue his student's culinary lesson by instructing her to demonstrate her understanding of what she has just watched by performing a similar physical demonstration herself via webcam. So, far from being anything seedy and sordid, as the sensationalist gutter press would have you believe, this picture depicts the aftermath of Grantham's instructional cake-making and baking session, where he innocently used his index finger to scoop up some of the delicious remains of the cake mix from inside the bowl, and then savoured its sweet, satisfying taste by sucking his fruit, sugar and butter-smeared finger clean. Something I'm sure at Christmas time in the kitchen we've all done and look forward to doing again this year. Who's behind door number 19 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Sunny Mann, the wife of former RAF pilot and Beirut hostage Jackie Mann. Sunny enjoyed a period of celebrity in the late 80s and early 90s after the release of her hostage husband. With those gigantic goggles, Sunny would certainly give 1985 snooker world champion Dennis Taylor a run for his money. Sunny must have been every optician's dream with those oversized specs. I wonder what her prescription was. Probably just one word. Massive. I'm guessing she didn't go to Specsavers, but judging by the size of her mammoth eyeglasses, she must have gone to Everest, the double glazing specialists, where her optometrist would have no doubt been Ted Moult, who would certainly have appreciated Sunny's preference for colossal spectacles, which are the size of a small UPVC double-glazed conservatory. Ted Moult would probably have recommended Sunny dispose of her stupendous spectacles and have her face fitted with bay windows. Everest UPVC bay windows are available in a range of colours, which would give Sunny a unique look. Sunny wrote a book called Holding On, the title of which must surely have been inspired by the weight of her gargantuan glasses, which certainly would have needed holding on to so as to stop them sliding off her face and onto the floor. Repairing a scratch or chip to the enormous elephantine lenses would be a job that even Autoglass would be wary to tackle. Sunny Mann, wearing the largest glasses known to man. Sponsored by Everest. Fit the best. Fit Everest. Okay, Reg, turn the fan on. Who's behind door number 20 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Harry Roger Webb, who later changed his name to Sir Cliff Richard. Cliff Richard, not to be confused with Keith Richards, has been on top of the pop charts for a staggering 6 decades, or 60 years. That's an incredible 720 months, or an unbelievable 21,900 days. Cliff's first film role came in 1959, for a film called Serious Charge. Richard would go on to face a serious charge of his own in real life many years later, when, section removed for legal reasons, Richard has never been arrested or charged with any crime. One of Cliff Richard's most successful films was the 1961 British musical The Young Ones, that spawned the UK #1 hit single The Young Ones. The film The Young Ones and its subsequent hit single The Young Ones are not to be confused with the anarchic British 1980s sitcom called The Young Ones, which featured as its theme tune a version of Cliff Richard's UK #1 hit single The Young Ones, sung not by Cliff Richard but by the sitcom cast of The Young Ones. The cast of the sitcom The Young Ones would later feature on the UK #1 hit single Cliff Richard and the Young Ones, singing a version of another Cliff Richard UK #1 hit single, Living Doll, and not, as you might expect, a version of Cliff Richard's UK #1 hit single,
The Young Ones. This was presumably to save any confusion from having Cliff Richard and the Young Ones singing The Young Ones, the theme from the British 1980s sitcom The Young Ones, based on the song The Young Ones, the title song from the film The Young Ones. Ironically, Cliff Richard is now 78 years old. For many years, Cliff Richard sang with his backing band The Shadows, led by guitarist Hank Marvin, whose name became a popular term of Cockney rhyming slang for malnourished due to lack of food. Bizarrely, when Band Aid, a supergroup made up of the UK's top pop talent, sang Do They Know It's Christmas in 1984 to raise money for the famine in Ethiopia, Cliff Richard and The Shadows were notable by their absence. Since then, Cliff Richard has put aside any concerns he may have as a Christian over the commercialisation of Christmas by releasing a string of Christmas singles and albums that have raked in millions of pounds in royalties for the ever-youthful septuagenarian, ensuring in the Richard household at least they do know it's Christmas, and Cliff for one will never be Hank Marvin. Merry Cliffmas.
Who's behind door number 21 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's former footballer and radio presenter Alan Brazil. Though you would have been forgiven for thinking it was Arthur Lowe, Rodney Dangerfield, or indeed even a slab of ye old oak gammon ham. No offence to Alan, but if this picture is anything to go by, though his radio show is entitled Alan Brazil's Sports Breakfast, his focus is clearly more on the breakfast and less on the sports. With the last name Brazil, you'd expect Alan to be a fan of nuts. And he is. For believe it or not, Alan has his own range of bar nut snacks called Alan Brazil's Nuts, and I salute him for the use of a nut-related pun. You can hire Alan Brazil as an after-dinner speaker. I don't know how much he charges, but I'm guessing it won't be peanuts. Or indeed any kind of nut, as nuts are not recognised as legal tender in the UK. It will most likely be some kind of monetary remuneration, probably in the form of a bank transfer, made after someone legally empowered to act on Alan's behalf, such as an agent or similar representative, has issued an invoice for the agreed amount to be paid in remittance for Alan's services. Alan Brazil drives an expensive car. It must have cost him an almond, a leg. For this Advent Calendar reveal, rather than say, let's have a look, I should have said, let's have a pecan. See. I must admit I didn't know a lot about Alan Brazil, so I had to look him up on the internet. Anyway, I'd better stop now. I can feel a sneeze coming on. Cashew. Bless you. Who's behind door number 22 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's Sarah Huckabee Sanders, press secretary to button mushroom endowed nincompoop President Donald Trump. Great. Thanks, Cold War Steve. What a festive treat. I mean, seriously, what am I meant to say about Sarah Huckabee Sanders? As the mouthpiece of the Trump clown car of imbeciles, opportunist cretins, and self-serving degenerates, she's beyond parody. Which doesn't help me, trying to create comedic light relief from the soul-crushing terror of modern times. Apparently, the name Huckabee is derived from an Old English name, the first part meaning crooked, and the name Sanders is derived from the Greek name Alexandros, meaning defender of men. As press secretary to the orange spray-tanned oaf of office,
Sanders has consistently defended narcissistic toddler tantrum tweeting Trump and his constant stream of lies. So, being a crooked defender of men seems most apt, if, unfortunately, not as humorous as I, and I'm sure you, would have liked a description of Huckabee Sanders to have been in this Cold War Steve Advent Calendar door reveal. Oh well. Soz. Who's behind door number 23 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, it's what looks like a futuristic Captain Birdseye, or a Colonel Sanders for the digital age. He appears to be a jolly fellow who would possibly volunteer for a local charity to dress up as Father Christmas, and he seems in this picture to be singing a jaunty Yuletide carol of peace, hope, joy and celebration. The truth, however, is of course much, much darker and horrific. This is in fact a picture of convicted Bosnian war criminal Slobodan Praljak. Nice. In his blurred hand is a thermos beaker full of liquid he is about to consume, but far from being a tasty Christmas punch, creamy seasonal eggnog, or warming mulled wine that would bring on a feeling of relaxation, merriment, and mirth, he is actually just about to ingest a cocktail of a more sinister recipe, potassium cyanide, which will result in unconsciousness, cardiac arrest, and ultimately death. Hardly a toddy most of us would care to consume during the celebration of Christmas festivities. Though some of you may be saying, oh yeah? Drinking a poisonous substance that will result in certain death would be preferable to spending another Christmas with my in-laws. Season's greetings. Who's behind door number 24 of the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar? Let's have a look. Why, surprise, surprise, it's Liverpudlian legend and queen of light entertainment television, Miss Cilla Black. Cilla at last. Well, we were all hoping for a white Christmas. That doesn't make sense, I hear you say. Au contraire, I retort. For Cilla Black's real name was actually Cilla White. Cilla decided to give herself a name that was a word opposite in meaning to her original name. What would be the opposite of McFadden's Cold War? Probably Woodyat's Hot Peace. I did toy with instead saying Woodyat's Warm Peace, which although is slightly more humorous and unpleasant sounding, is actually less grammatically accurate. So there. Put that in your cracker and pull it. I wonder if Cold War Steve would have been as successful if he had named himself Hot Peace Adam. Probably not such a good name for an artist, but an excellent name for a stripper if Cold War Steve fancies a change of occupation in the new year. Our Cilla, as the final Cold War Steve Advent Calendar door reveal of 2018. It had to be really, didn't it? If it hadn't been Cilla behind the final door, there would have been some kind of Twitter riot with Cold War Steve followers smashing their Twitter profiles, setting fire to previous tweets and scrawling four-lettered abusive obscenity-ridden replies on other Twitter users' posts, using phrases which may contain some very explicit language, which will frequently mean sexual swear words. Sorry, I turned into Simon Bates for a moment there, in one of his British Board of Film Classification warnings that used to appear at the beginning of rental videos in the late 1980s. Well, there's Scylla, in the final Cold War Steve Advent Calendar door reveal. Don't look so concerned, Scylla. It's Christmas. That could be a song.
Don't look so concerned, Scylla. It's Christmas. Don't look so concerned, Scylla. It's Christmas. Yeah.
There's an idea for a Christmas single next year. Well, although we've come to the end of our festive journey that has hopefully provided a daily lol, ruffle, and perhaps the occasional lumfow, we may, I hope, return to do it all over again next year. So I, and on behalf of Cold War Steve, and I'm sure Scylla, would like to wish a very Merry Christmas and a Laura peace and goodwill to all. Cheers. Well, that's it for the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar reveals of 2018. Thank you all for your kind words of appreciation. It's been fun, and though it was quite an undertaking to produce a video every day, your positive comments made it all worthwhile, and I thank you for the support and opportunity to provide some festive cheer. Thank you especially, Cold War Steve, for allowing me to waffle over your excellent work and for your positive comments of appreciation and encouragement. I look forward, as we all do, to seeing what you create in the future. You, sir, are a genius, and I salute you. And hopefully, we'll do the Cold War Steve Advent Calendar 2019 next year. It's been a pleasure. Cheers.